Facebook, Google. Houston, we have a problem. Right now, we have a disease that is spreading throughout the stock market right now, and it is single-handedly taking down stock after stock right now. And look no further than Nvidia today. Nvidia stock down over 15% as of taking this screenshot, down to the lowest level it's been since the stock market went down to that 21,000 level last month. So unbelievable move down for Nvidia today and Nvidia shareholders. Now let's keep in mind, Nvidia was a stock that was over $290 a share 4 months ago. 4 months ago, this was a $290 stock, and we're at $135 on it. That's well over a cut in half right there, guys. That is absolutely vicious. And what worries me about Nvidia is basically what worries me about a lot of stocks that are doing business globally right now. Let's explain this, okay? So back when Nvidia came out with this latest earnings back in November, first off, they missed on revenue numbers that they were supposed to hit. But that was not the biggest issue. The biggest issue was around guidance. So after seeing 2 years of stellar growth in its gaming and data center segments, we're seeing a leveling off for Nvidia, and expectations have suddenly come down dramatically. The company itself cites excessive channel inventory related to the post-cryptocurrency boom, which will be corrected. Thus, revenue guidance for its fiscal Q4 in January has been ratcheted down to $2.7 billion from $3.4 billion, which was expected by analysts, okay? That was a massive miss in guidance. Like usually if companies miss on guidance, what basically analysts were expecting for that upcoming quarter, usually it's like a slight, like something like that would have been like, oh, we might expect 3.2 or we might expect 3.3 instead of 3.4, what analysts were expecting. 2.7 is like a dramatic bad miss, okay? So this was already heading into Nvidia stock, and this was a big reason why Nvidia stock was already crashing so bad. But then you get news that came out here just a few hours ago, and you're like, it is so much worse for Nvidia than we had previously thought, okay? Nvidia just fell the most in 2 months after cutting its outlook for fourth quarter revenue, reflecting weaker than forecast sales of its gaming and data center platforms due to the slowing global economy, especially in China. The biggest maker of chips for computer graphics cards said it sees fiscal fourth quarter revenue of $2.2 billion, down from a previous forecast of 2.7. So to get that understood, basically analysts were expecting $3.4 billion in revenue for Nvidia, just like literally about 3 or 4 months ago. Then Nvidia's like, no, we're probably going to do 2.7. Now they're like, no, we did around 2.2. That is a dramatic miss, guys. That is a dramatic miss on a catastrophic type scale, okay? Deteriorating macroeconomic conditions, particularly in China, impacted consumer demand for Nvidia gaming GPUs, the Santa Clara, California-based company said on a statement on Monday. Some of the sales of the high-end graphics processing unit using Nvidia's latest Turing design for realistic video and images, which is it's a sick product what they announced. Were also lower than expected, the company said. Some customers may have delayed purchases, waiting for lower prices and further proof of the technology in actual games, according to the company. There's a lot of the technology in those isn't even available because most games aren't even using it yet. But we got a massive issue, okay? This is bigger than just Nvidia. First off, Nvidia's business is an absolute disaster here in the short term, okay? Nvidia has a lot of things to look forward to if you're a long-term investor in the stock. 2020 through 2030, this should be a massive growth company once again. But needless to say, this year is going to be an absolute disaster for Nvidia. They're going to likely be down every single quarter. But this is a bigger issue than just Nvidia, okay? Just earlier this month, Apple came out and specifically cited that iPhone sales in China were very weak, and pretty much their entire miss that they had as far as their guidance went and whatnot, pretty much all came from the China region. Caterpillar, one of the biggest companies in the world, also had the same exact issue, weakness coming out of China, right? So this is bigger than, oh, it's just Nvidia and it might be some weakness in Nvidia. It's actually a lot of weakness in China in general and some other markets around the world, but China specifically, all right? And basically any company that does business in China right now is going to see their numbers drop year over year. It's pretty much a given at this point in time that every single company that does business in China, if you own a stock and they do business in China, expect numbers to be weaker, okay? And that's whether they do business directly in China or indirectly in China, like a semiconductor stock that might sell smartphones into China or something like that. Like those stocks are affected. Pretty much anything across the board, China related, it's just a hurting stock after stock out there. Now, some of this has already been priced into some of these stocks because they've fallen big time, but some of them, honestly, in Nvidia's case, for instance, it wasn't priced in because it was even much worse than expected. To take guidance down from 3.4 billion to 2.2 is ridiculous, guys. Like that's like mind-blowing, okay? Now, another thing that's affecting Nvidia in a very negative way is just cryptocurrency right now. Bitcoin's priced around 3,600. If we remember, about a year and a month ago, okay, so 14 months ago, Bitcoin was around 20,000 and cryptocurrencies were flying high. If I recall, Ethereum was well over 1,000. Countless cryptocurrencies were just booming and basically that was just pushing up pricing for basically a lot of the GPUs and whatnot that Nvidia sold. And I remember a lot of gamers were mad at those particular times. They're like, oh, we either can't get the products we want or the prices are so elevated, like insane right now. So that is I think Nvidia always kind of like downplayed the cryptocurrency boom, like, oh, it's just this little thing over here or something. I think it was actually way more impactful for Nvidia's business than what they even thought or what they publicly disclosed, because when supply and demand get so out of whack and the demand is just insane for Nvidia's products like it was, like it just pushes up pricing, okay? And then if we look here, right, year ago, Nvidia did $2.9 billion in sales, and they're expected to do around 2.2 for this current January quarter. So basically, that's a big decline there, guys. It was already a 7% decline if they came in at the 2.7, but now that's 2.9. We're talking about a very big double-digit decline in revenue year over year. And as far as next quarter, it'll be easily another double-digit decline in revenue. And if we look at the current year, it was expected that they would actually grow revenue year over year. At this point in time, I don't see how they grow revenue year over year. I don't see how Nvidia will grow revenue in 2019. Like when I just look at the numbers, how weak this first quarter was, how weak the next quarter is going to be, and probably the next, let's say, 2 quarters are going to be. I don't see how Nvidia is going to grow revenue year over year, basically in 2019 versus 2018. Like to me, it just isn't adding up. So this went from a company that was growing, quite fast at a 20+% clip to all of a sudden a company now that's probably going to have revenues decline year over year, and that's a big change. And that's how you get a stock to go from $290 to literally $130, like in a 4-month span. When you go from nice double-digit growth to all of a sudden, now we might actually shrink year over year. Like that is incredible, guys. And if they do somehow grow in 2019, it's going to be a very slim growth. It's not going to be. They're not going to do 26% revenue growth. I guarantee you that. That's not going to happen. So it's going to be tough sledding for Nvidia this year, and they just have a lot of issues to work through. But China is just a disease that's spreading right now, and basically any company you own, directly or indirectly, that does business in China is being hurt right now. And we don't know when the hurt will stop. It might not stop until the trade war ends, but even at that time, it might take at least a few quarters for it to get back up and running. So short term, I wouldn't expect much from your stocks as far as what the companies actually report for numbers this quarter and what they guide for next quarter if they do business in China. I just wouldn't expect a lot from it, guys. That's the bottom line. There are certain stocks out there that don't have Chinese exposure, and some of those stocks were always thought of, oh man, if they had Chinese exposure, that'd be so great, right? Like a Facebook, for example, right? Facebook doesn't do any business in China, so that's a business that they shouldn't probably be hurting as far as their numbers go. We'll get to see their numbers here in a day or two, but that's a company that has no exposure to China. Something like Google has no exposure to China. So there are certain stocks that don't have exposure to China that might actually be okay in this situation, but if it has any type of exposure directly or indirectly to China, I would just say don't expect a lot, guys, and expect probably revenue guides down and things like that, and maybe even EPS guides down, because it's just weakness. Like there's no doubt about it. Like the Chinese numbers that China has shown are weak, the weakest we've seen in a long time. And then company after company, these are the biggest companies in the world, are citing weakness in China. Like there's no question China is messed up right now. Like there's no question about that. If you were doubting that, you were sorely mistaken at the moment. But we'll see how long it takes to get it back up and running. But right now, China's not a good place because every single company is reporting weakness out there from China. All right. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this. As always, let me know what your opinion is down there in that comment section. Make sure you follow me on Instagram. Thank you for watching and have a great day.